This video is about our road towards the meaning of life. It is based on the work of a Danish author named Martinus. And what I'm going to present in this video is a little bit different because it's actually based on some lectures I have given. And this is one of them. And I'll explain a lot about the world picture that Martinus has described. And I'll just go about and do the same lecture basically. So I'll go through my slides and tell you what I had said in those lectures. The lecture is about how we are going through a development as living beings, and that we will get better and better insights into the meaning of life, and at some point we'll actually get to know the meaning of life. And Martinus is providing what he calls a theoretical, that is, that we don't experience the meaning of life directly right now on our own, but at some point we will get to that understanding ourselves. And of course, there is a lot of local meanings of life right now, but Martinus states that there is an overall meaning of life. And that's what we're going to look into today and talk about where we are and where we are going forward. So, the title of the lecture is Our Road Towards the Meaning of Life. So, let's start out by some of the questions that I would like to answer in this lecture or this video. And the first thing I would like to talk about is basically what is the road of life? What is it we are talking about? What is this road? Where are we in life? And it's not a physical path, but it's sort of a development, a spiritual development, or personal development. Where are we going right now? What is the status? What is actually going on? And that's not common knowledge actually. But Martinus provides an answer, and I will go over that. And then the next question I would like to talk about, I will talk about is what is the meaning of life? And obviously, people will talk about or debate, is there even a meaning of life? And according to Martinus, and I will say there is, he says there is a meaning of life. I actually got one question in one of the lectures that he has also said that there is no meaning of life, and maybe I'll come back to that in this video as well. But he definitely says there that you can come up with a meaning of life, and it's not just something that you create yourself. There's actually inherent in life a meaning to life. I'll go with that, and then I'll talk about why it's so hard to see the meaning of life. Why can we not see it right now? If there is a meaning of life out there, why can we not see it? Why can we not understand it? Why can we not perceive it? Why do we not understand it right now? And then towards the end, I will talk about how do we walk the road of life in the best way. How can we actually find our Martinus states there are better and or less good ways to walk the path of life. He's not claiming we should do it in one specific way, but he has some guidelines, and I will go into some of them. So, with all these words, let's get started. I should say Martinus has made some symbols. I'll show some of them. I already showed one of them. They are published by Martinus Institute, and you can find them in there. And they are also the ones who has the copyrights, and they have been so kind to let me show them here on the YouTube channel. So I think that was what I had to say. Well, if you are interested in spirituality and meaning of life and explanations for that and all that, I'll post more videos. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. That really helps the channel actually. YouTube is very observant on subscribers. And if you have any questions or comments or anything you'd like me to expand on something, just post it in the comments and I'll reply on it. And if there are some good topics, I'll definitely pick them up and do some videos on that. It's really fun for me to do these videos. I learn a lot from it, and I hope some of you get something out of the videos as well. That's the idea, at least. So let's get into it. The first part here is, some motivation, basically. Why is it so difficult for us right now? It's just, is it really? I mean, the idea here is basically, it can be difficult to figure out what is really going on in life, right? as long as everything is going well and you don't have any obstacles, pain, maybe even sufferings in different ways, unpleasantness, then life is fine, right? Then you just go about living your life. But when it's get tough, you have to make hard decisions, you have hardships in your life, things like that. It's really going uphill. Then you might start to question, okay, what is the meaning of all that? Um, if you're a religious person, you might lose your faith. And if you're a materialistic person, you might say, hey, how can this all be just random, basically a coincidence? I mean, if there's no intention behind what is going on, why do we have to be in a position or in a life situation where things are unpleasant? What's the meaning of all that? Martinus actually gives some explanations for that. But that's where all these questions um, for the meaning of life comes up. So it can be difficult to find a meaning on what is going on, basically, because if you are from the churches, the religions, they don't really provide you any explanation. It's just you have to believe in it. You have to believe in authorities, and maybe it's not logical for you what is going on. Why do we have? Why do some people go to heaven and other people go to hell, and some people are even born in a way? They used to be, if you're not born by married people, then you're already going to hell, right? So what can you do about that? What's the logic in that? What is this all-knowingly God that can help you and all those kind of things? That can be a lot of questions on those kind of things. Anyway, but it can be difficult to find answers in the churches and in the science today. There's really no basic answer to what the meaning of life is. I've been in science myself. I have a PhD, so when it comes to the bigger questions like the meaning of life and those kind of things, science is also kind of in the dark. There are some areas of philosophy where they're getting kind of close, but they are not providing an overall answer in the way that Martinus actually does. I should also say Martinus is not an academic in any way. He was born 1890 in northern part of an area of Denmark called Jylland, which is really out in the farmlands. So he didn't get a lot of schooling, and he started working. And when he turned 30, he got these big spiritual experiences, and he got what he's calling permanent intuition or cosmic consciousness. And the idea with that, or how he explains that, is basically when he thought about a question, he would get the answer. That's how intuition works. And he could actually, that's what he explains, see these answers to those big questions in life. So that's the source of all what I'm talking about here. And he has explained in his books how all these things happen. So there's no secrets here. No, he tried to make it all transparent. I think that's the word we'll use today. Lay it out there so we can actually read it ourselves. He has a lot of explanations. So he calls it a spiritual science, not just a spiritual approach or thinking or anything. It's scientific in a way that we can actually go through the arguments he has, and with our own intelligence and own experiences start to check it. So that's the basis of all this, just to lay it out there. But anyway, back to the lecture, and back to the topic of the lecture. So it's difficult to find a meaning. Sometimes it can be really difficult to find a way in life. You have two options, three options, whatever. Should I go with one of them or the other one? We all have options in our life, things we can do differently all the time. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's difficult. And what should I do? What's the meaning of all this? How should I interpret the life I'm dealing with and experiencing? Martinus provides some answers and I'll give them in this video. So let's get into the next step. So what is this road of life? And one of the main points provided by Martinus is that we have an eternal life. So the road of life is basically our life. Let me take the next one here. The road of life is a symbol of life in general. So life is everything we have, right? Life is everything we experience. basically everything there is. So the path of life or the road of life is our entire life, basically. Um, and it's not just a physical life; it's a mental, a spiritual one as well. There's a mental side of us. We can think. We don't usually think of it too much as something there is. Um, we know for sure that our physical bodies are here and the physical world is here because we experience it all the time. But we actually also experience our thoughts. I mean, we can pretty easy uh, oh, imagine, for instance, a beach. That's the that's the one I usually use. So just a tropical beach or something, right? You can have that image in your thought because we have seen it in the physical world. So we can recall it from our memory and we can see it. And Martinus states that's that mental part of us, that spiritual part of us, it's actually also something there is. And that's important to us as well. It's all our thoughts, it's the mental um process we have. And he says that what's important for how our road or path in life is where we are on more on the mental side than on the physical side. The physical side of us, our physical body, our physical life is caused, you can say, by the mental status we have or the mental development we have. I'll come more into that in a bit. Um, how that how we can see that there are different physical living beings, and that physical expression or the way you are physically is a reflection or caused by the mental part. So this road that we are walking is not so much a physical walk. It's more like a mental or spiritual development, if you want. So that's one part of it, and the other part of it is that Martinus states that we cannot stand still. Life, the sign of life, is basically that it's moving, it's changing. The opposite of life is, you can say, absolute stillness. Nothing is happening. Silence, if you like. Nothing is changing. But life is always changing. If it's not changing, we cannot experience anything. And life is something we experience. So life is change, basically. And that also means that our path, our road in life, is something that we always have to move on. There's always a change. Yeah, as I write here, the sign of life is movement and change. So we have to move forward in a way all the time. So how does this actually work? And I will have a quote from Martinus here. I need a little bit to drink. There we go. So this is from one of Martinus' article. He wrote, can't remember the number right now, but there are probably hundreds of them. And he also wrote, his main work is the Book of Life, which is 2,500 pages, and he wrote about 10,000 pages overall and gave lots of lectures. And you can find it all on Martinus DK. Take a look at that when you have listened to all what I have to say here, right? I'll post a link in the description. Anyway, so Martinus writes here in the article, The Road of Life. And I'll just let me point with the mouse here. Terrestrial mankind is thus traveling from darkness to light, just as it has previously come from this light down into darkness. So the idea here is, let me read it all. After the experience of being satiated with this, the darkness, the great culmination of light, which is now its goal, the road of life, will again lead the mankind forward to a new culmination of darkness. After satiation with this, the eternal road will again lead the beings toward light, and so on in all eternity. So let me try to break down by using this symbol, what Martinus is stating here. So what he's saying here is that we have a period of time, and on this symbol, it starts in this area. I really hope you can see my mouse here. And then, so that's the lower part of the symbol. This is the area where we go from light and goes into darkness. And there's an area, and that's pretty much where we are right now. We are satiated by darkness right now. So, and darkness is basically disharmony. We see it in the world right now, right? There are wars, there are unfriendships, we're unfriendly, treat each other badly. So there's a lot of disharmony, there's a lot of pain, basically. And we are saturated by that. We don't want that anymore. And it might sound a little bit crazy that we have wanted that at some point, but that, let me explain before you make that conclusion. But basically, the idea is that there are experiences that we really, really would like to have. And when we get these experiences, we can experience them over and over again in similar fashion. And at some point, we get saturated. We get tired by them. We don't want them anymore. We want something else. We want the contrast, basically. So the idea here is that we go in this circular fashion where we go, and over here is the dark side of things, or the disharmonious side of things. And that's where we are right now. And at some point, Martinus explains that we will, because we want something else, we'll develop in that direction. And at some point, we'll actually get the talent to be able to create not the disharmony we have right now, but harmony. And we'll get into a harmonious state, a life that's peaceful. There's a state of harmony, basically. So all this war and poverty and hunger and all those kind of things we see in the world right now will go away over time. And Martinus talks about it will take some up to 3,000 years, basically. So it's not something that comes tomorrow or anything, but it just the fact that it could happen is something different, right? So anyway, so the idea here is basically that we are saturated by the dark right now. I hope we can agree on that. That we don't want all this war. Even when people go to war, they usually use the explanation or the argument that it is to bring the peace, right? And it used to be different back in time. I'll come back to that in a moment. Anyway, so the main idea here is that we will get into the light. We will live in this light. Beginning it will be physical, but at some point it will get completely mental, or not in a bad way, but a spiritual experience. So we will have a state of that. That will be for another video. And we'll have this peaceful life, and we'll have all the creativity, and we can create things, and we can do the most amazing thing in the world, basically. And we'll live in that state for a very long time. I don't know how long, but as long as we want it, basically. And at some point, the idea here is that we'll start to get saturated by that. We'll get tired of it. We'll get a little bit bored. All those dark experiences we had here, which is the contract that we actually create the light by, will get saturated. And in an area or a state of our life, we'll actually turn inwards, and we'll, to explain, we will re-experience the whole thing, this whole spiral, in a salient way. Anyway, we'll get tired of that as well. That's the highest light in some ways, and we'll start to have a hunger, basically, for the dark or the disharmony again. So we will start slowly to develop into the physical world again, and the physical world is where we can experience disharmony. So we'll start out by being minerals, and then, so that's, Martinus states that there's living beings behind minerals, but they are not consciousness on the physical plane, and that's why we can cut our hair and our nails, because these are minerals, right? So there are no consciousness there. And the next state is the plants, and he says they have an awareness on the physical plane, so they cannot experience the physical plane like we can, where we actually see things directly and can have a clear picture of what is going on, but they have an awareness. And we see it with the trees, for instance, that they can have their roots going in the direction of water. We see plants that they close down when it's cold or dark, and they open up their head or whatever it's called when it's light. But the development continues, and at some point we get into the animal kingdom, and that's where we're animals, and that's an area where we can actually experience directly on the physical plane. And there will be a period of time where we live on to serve ourselves in a way. That's how you live as an animal, and at some point that culminates, and we get saturated by that as well, and that's where we turn around and start to go back towards the light again. And this is the eternal road of life, you can say. That's the eternal overall structure of life that goes on forever, and it's a spiral. It gets bigger and bigger because and we get more and more experience. In principle, it's the same. It's not the same experiences we will have, and it will also feel like it's a greater light or a greater darkness we experience every time. Whether it is that actually in for real or in absolute terms, that's for another video. But basically, we'll keep developing, we'll keep putting layers on layers, and that's why it's a spiral and not just a circular thing. And I should also explain these two ends. So the idea here is that this spiral, if we go backwards, it will go on forever. It never ends. That's the why this is an eternal world picture, and that's why the channel is called that. Martinus called some of his book, or he calls his world picture the eternal world picture, because this is a description of how the eternal life is working. And he states that these spirals has gone on forever backwards, and they will go on like this forever forward. And that might not sound great, but the way it is great is that we are always going toward something we want to go to. So when we are in a darkness here, or in a dark period of time where we are right now, where we have this disharmony, we really want to get into a situation where we have a peaceful, pleasant way of living. So we have that to look forward to. And when we get saturated by the light, we really want a disharmonious situation. And that's what we have to look forward to through the mineral kingdom, through the plant kingdom, and into the animal kingdom. So this is not some punishment that we have to go through for eternity. This is something where we are always having something to look forward to. It's like every day or every year. I mean, it's not really a punishment that we have days or years, right? That's just how it is. That's how it works. It's actually a structure that we live through. And those kind of circular things we can see in a lot of places. I mean, let's take the day right. That starts out, it has to start, and then it culminates at some point, and then it gets into darkness again. So there's also a circular way, and that's just how it is. That's the best words I have right now. But that's sort of the road of life for eternity. Anyway, let me move on. So there's basically an alternation between harmony and disharmony. And I've just put these images up here. So when we have the light periods of time, we have an appetite on being for others, and that gives our life harmony. And in the darker periods of time, we have an appetite to be oneself or be for oneself. We are basically serving ourselves. We are egoistic in a way, and that gives disharmony. And to put it shortly, Martinus states there's something called karma. So what we put out there is what we get back. So when we provide harmony for us, we will get harmony at some point. And if we give disharmony, we'll experience that as well. Long time short. Anyway, so let me move on. Time is flying, which is nice. This is a little bit different view on things. This is basically the symbol Martinus called the living being one. Martinus explains that a living being consists of three principles, and they all have to be there. We already talked about this, the created area. That's where all things are happening. That's where all the changes are happening. But Martinus explains that behind the changes, all the changes we see basically, is a living, not a living being. That's actually not right. But there's an I, like in I do something, that has an ability to create and experience life, basically. And that's not part of the created. If you take the materialistic point of view, you try to figure out, I might simplify this. I apologize if I do that. But essentially, if you're a brain researcher, you try to figure out how is this computer we have up here, our brain, how does that make consciousness and all those things happening? Martinus states that's not how it works. There's something behind this, something that's not physical. I already talked about the mental or the spiritual world, but even behind that, there's something that's just there, something that's not moving, something that's eternal, something that is, he talks about being unmanifested, something that's not a created thing. It's just there. He talks about it as a the causeless cause. There's no reason behind that there. It's just there. And that makes it what he calls an absolute fixed point. So what's happening here? Anyway, so that makes it a fixed point, and he says you have to have that in order to move something. So let's just imagine I want to move my finger here, right? That's actually sitting on my hand, which is sitting on my arm, which is sitting on my body, which is standing on the earth, which is flying around in the solar system, which is flying around in the galaxy. So what is actually moving me around? I'm moving me around. My eye is moving me around. What I want to do as a living being is moving me around. And he states that's this eye and the ability to create, which is a fixed point, which actually makes it. I mean, I can only move my arm because this is physically, it's not a real absolute fixed point, but this is how I can actually move my arm because I'm kind of fixed towards the earth in a way. But he says it's not a real fixed point, the earth. The eye is the real fixed point. I hope that makes sense. Leave a comment and I'll be happy to do hours of video on that because it's not that easy to understand in some way. It's really, really simple, and that's what makes it hard to understand, actually. I'll make a series on the mystery of life pretty soon, where I will go into some of these things in more details. Anyway, so this is the living being. I just wanted to say it, that there's this eternal part of us, and there's the created part, which is all, and the eternal part or the I is eternal, and it's always the same. So you cannot experience this. There's no movement. It's basically not life in itself, but it has this ability to actually change something, and that's what we experience. So that's the living part of the living being, you see, or the changing part. But you need these three things, and I've made some videos about it. Why you need that? I don't want to go into that right now. But it's just to say there's this I behind it. Anyway, let's move on. So if this I is behind everything that's created, not just me, but the whole, not just you or my body, but the whole thing. How do we actually see it? And the idea here is basically that you can think of this I like water. And if the water is not in contact with anything, we cannot experience it with our physical eyes. It has to be in contact with something. If it's just the water, you can just see through it and there's nothing there, right? So the idea here is basically the water, and it's the same water, right? It can be in a state where it's really, really clear. It's nice drinking water. It's a pleasant or harmonious experience, basically. But the same water can also be in this sewer, this bad It's not a nice experience to drink this soiled water, but it will get there eventually. Who knows, right? So the idea here is basically, like I talked about in this eternal view, it's also here. We can see it in our surroundings. Anyway, so the path of life, this is the first question, is basically we go in this eternal back and forth between harmonious and disharmonious living. There's a lot more to it. In order to live, we need to have a contrast. So you cannot experience the pleasant without the unpleasant, and vice versa. So that's also part of that. And I've made some videos about that, and I don't want to go more into that because I have to finish this video up at some point, I guess. Anyway, so the contrast principle, or this contrast, basically says that the meaning we also need these harmonious experiences in order to keep our consciousness alive, basically, or keep it going. Sometimes we need to repeat and have some disharmonious experiences in order to keep living this eternal life. Moving on. Let me have a little bit. So, what's the meaning of life? What's the idea here is? And I'll try to go into a little bit on that there's an eternal part. And seen from that, an eternal or eternity is basically, it's not just starting somewhere and ending somewhere, or we're going to another state. It's basically something that has been there or is there all the time, and it's not really changing. So it has no direction because it's not moving, it's not changing, right? There's no change. So if there is a meaning towards that, and Martinus was asked by one of his employees, or one of them, those who went to his lectures back then, what is the meaning of life? And Martinus basically stated that the meaning of life from an eternal viewpoint is to experience it. And that's all there is to it. Because as soon as you start to say it's about being big or small, make money, or being helpful or whatever, you are into the changing world, the timely part of the world. But from an eternal point of view, you might argue that the plan I just showed you has some eternity to it, but just the eternity itself is to experience life. And that might not sound very helpful. And it really isn't when we go back to the questions I asked in the beginning of this video about what direction should I take in life and so forth. It doesn't provide you any help in that sense. But the deeper meaning is just to experience it. And it's kind of nice to know sometimes. So when we go into life itself, we go into all the changing things, all the big and small, nice and unpleasant, all those kind of things, right? Martinus states that right now we are in a period of time where our main goal is to become real human beings. It's essentially I've written here, on the wavelength of the eternal world plan, basically. Get in line with that, get in touch with that. And this is the timely perspective based on an eternal plan, basically. So let's look at some other symbols that Martinus has made. I took this number 13 here because it's actually called the Eternal World Plan. And here we see the same 6 kingdoms as well. Really, really hope my mouse is showing, or else I'll put some arrows up. Anyway, the only thing I will actually use the symbol for here is that in the outer circle here, you can see this darkness, basically. Here in the animal kingdom, and there's a little bit of light. And then when you get up to the spiritual part of the world, that's where the light comes in. And this is where you get saturated by that. And you come back here, and you get into the animal kingdom where the darkness is. And you get saturated by that, and you go back and forth in that. And then The other symbol here is symbol number 11. 11, the eternal world picture, the living being 2, the eternal Godhead, and the eternal sons of God. This is his main symbol, and there's a lot of it, but let's just do it very briefly here. So here you see the 6 kingdoms or planes again, and here you see the earth basically, and this is to symbolize where we are right now. So we are at the last part of the last half of the animal kingdom, and we are about to get into the what Martinus calls the real human kingdom. So so that's where we're heading right now, and that's the plan with us. That's the meaning. That's the overall meaning. And you can say again, okay, what does that help me in? Should I buy this house? Should I stay with this partner? Should I stay in this job or get another one? All those kind of things. It might not say a lot, but the idea here is that there is a higher purpose, there's a higher meaning with what is going on. There's an intention behind all the stuff that we're experiencing. I will come back to that in some of the upcoming videos. I'll go through the mystery of life, and it will be in there. But basically, the overall meaning right now for us is to rid of this part of us where we are animals, that part of our consciousness, and start become real human beings. And that's the third part of this. So this is why it's so hard to see the meaning of life. And the idea here is basically that we are in this transition between being animals and become real human beings. So we have both parts of us. And essentially, this is the Sphinx in Egypt, and that's actually a symbol for that. That we have, you see, we have the human head. That's the human part of us, but we still have the animal, the lion body, whatever animal it is, which is the animal part of our consciousness. And Martinus basically states that the sort of the foundational tone in the universe is this harmonious or giving or unselfness approach to life, way of living. And we cannot live like that right now. And that also means that we cannot get on the right wavelength, so to speak. We cannot see it all because our own consciousness is standing in the way. That makes sense in a way. So we cannot hook up on life's eternal facts, basically. So we basically don't know what is going on in our life. We don't know what it is. We don't know what life is. We don't know what the meaning with it is. So we're just living it as good as we can, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. But Martinus said, as I said earlier, we will learn, we'll develop, and we'll get into a state where we can actually see it. Right now, he has provided some information because he was a bit further, and he says there's nothing unusual about that. Everyone will be what he is. So it's not like he's some extraordinary living being in some ways, but he's like an older uncle, brother, whatever, who is teaching us some stuff. I'll come back to that in a moment. So why it's so hard to see the meaning of life? That's because we have these two sides of us, and I did not have this one in English. But this is the head, right? And essentially, we have two different types of consciousness in us. We have the human part, and we have the animal part of us. And let's just. So here's the animal part. That's selfishness versus unselfishness. And I'll also say there's the intolerance and the tolerance. And we could talk a lot about this, how this is. And I think I'll just cut it short and say we have these two things. And essentially, when the animal part of us, that's an automatic part of us because we have lived it for so long. And the human side of us is very new. So that sometimes loses out to the animal side of us. Martinus essentially says back in time when we were only animals, that was how we were supposed to live. So that was not a problem with it for us. So we had no bad consciousness or anything. We just lived like that Right now we have both of them, and sometimes we basically want our ideals is normally the human side of us, but sometimes it loses out to the stronger animal side. But over time, we'll get the experiences that we need in order to be only living like human beings. Anyway, that's there basically. So Martinus also made a symbol, and there's a lot of things going on this. It's called the animal and human thoughts climates, and it basically explains that. There's a lot to this. Um, I'll just so these are different thought climates. I would translate it to. Um, for instance, this one. That's the sort of the killing ability in us. I'm not gonna go over all those, but he describes the different thoughts that we have and how they develop through the last. Essentially, this line here in the middle here is the middle of the animal kingdom. So this is how he describes the last part of the animal kingdom until we get into the real human kingdom. I'll just mention that there's a lot of he talks about our sexual poles. So there's a lot of things going on how our relationships to each other is changing. Right, we used to be, if you look at animal kingdoms, it's basically a pair of two. But right now we have another side of us. If you are a male, you'll have a male pole and a female sexual pole. I'm not gonna go into that in this video. Actually, that's gonna take me half an hour to explain that in a way. I think maybe I'll even get in trouble on YouTube starting it. It's all laid out in Martinus' work how it works. But I'll just say our relationship, our marriages, and all that. I mean, what is it? 40 something percent of marriages in Denmark are going wrong. They'll get divorced, and it has something to do with this. And basically, that we have a side of us that doesn't make us good at being married necessarily anymore. And there's also sides of us that gets into the interest of science and art and other interest in just being in a family, and that causes a lot of issues. Basically, we'll get back to that another day. Anyway, so here's the next one. It's called the veiled and unveiled eternal truth, and I'm just want to use it to say that here we have a different life. Martinus states, I mean, this eternal life basically works that there's a period of time where we are physical living beings and we are reincarnating. And between the physical lives, we live in this spiritual world and we come back and forth a lot of times and over times. And this is where the lower part of this symbol is basically showing that at some point we used to have a lot of this animal side of us, and it's the human part of us is developing. So we can also see there's this skeleton kind of thing, skull. So that's the killing part of us. That's what makes some people kill other people, but it's also what makes us make other people unhappy. That's also killing each other's happiness is also sort of killing each other's, not physical, obviously, but that's also a part we have to fix at some point. So what this basically shows that there's a long period of time here where this dark side of us is basically blocking us from getting the full insight in life, which we have here, where we have overcome the animal side of us, and we can actually get this intuition Martinus is talking about, and we can see it ourselves. It might take a while, a couple of lives more, some thousand years, something like that. That's what he's talking about. But for now, we can read about it if we want to. We can we can see videos like this, and get information about it. Martinus has laid it out for us, basically. So I just wanted to show that this takes a long time, and at some point we will actually get rid of it. We'll overcome this dark side of us, and we get a lot of help on the way. All our experiences is some kind of guidance towards this, and at some point we will overcome it, and then we will get the full access to the knowledge ourselves. And then I have this next one, the principle of the world redemption. And I'll just briefly explain how that works. It's basically when you cannot walk your own path, then you need help to walk the path. And we are still in a situation where we need help because we don't know what life is, basically. That's the claim here, right? Um, and if you claim otherwise, put it in the comment. I'll be happy to talk about how and why you know what life is. I'm actually kind of keen on getting all the arguments. Anyway, so this is sort of the helpers that help us move forward in this eternal life plan, if you like. And Martinus explains that back in the days, way back, there was a time where we actually had to learn how to get into the darkness. So that was what he called dark world redeemers. So they were actually showing us the way how to be these killing living beings. And we are there today. We have learned that. We know how to do the wars. Our problem is not how to be angry, how to go to war, how to kill each other's happiness. We are really good at that. It's an automatic function. We can just do it. Our problem is actually not to do it. So the idea is basically that we learned that way back and we needed help for that. And then at some point, when we go back to the barbarians, they were basically, I imagine that they're tribes, right? And if one tribe killed one from the other tribe, essentially they went out and just wiped the other tribe out if they could. So that was really, that was all in, right? And that was the ideals if you wanted to go to, I'm from Scandinavia, right? And we had Valhall. So if you wanted to go to their paradise, you needed to be killed in war. Basically, dying from age, being old, um, would lead you to hell, basically. So that was the ideal: go to war and kill other people, basically. And then at some point, Moses came around, and he said, "Hey, if someone kills one of your guys or takes some money from you, you cannot just let's do the killing example. If the other one kills one of your guys, you cannot just go and wipe them out. You can take if they take one of yours, you can take one of them, right? Eye for an eye. Uh, that's the principle, right? So that was actually a step in a humane direction. It was a step towards reducing the violence, all the killing, and so forth. Martinus states that a lot of this thinking is actually where we are today in the practical world. When Moses came around, he just stated this is how you should do it. And then it took a long time to actually get to that point. And it also took some of it has been fairly brutal in a way. But that was what it took to get into the state where it's an eye for an eye. But then life moves on, right? You cannot stand still. So the next step that happened in this world redemption is that Jesus Christ came around, and what he basically showed is the next step. So what he did when he was on the cross was basically to state, even when people do some really bad stuff to you, and he was probably innocent. I would say he was innocent, right, on this cross, and it was probably the worst torture you can get. But he was still able to what is it called? Yeah, to be tolerant, right? Not to do revenge. I can't not remember that word right now. Anyway, forgiven. He could forgive. That was the word I was looking for, right? So even when people, if we talk about these old barbarians, right? Instead of just killing all of them, now you just shouldn't just kill one of them, do one-to-one revenge. You should actually forgive them. You should understand why you experienced what you experienced and not do revenge. Of course, you can protect yourself and all those kind of things. It's the idea is not to be stupid or anything, uh, but you're not bitter, you're not hateful, you're not angry. You don't do this revenge. So that was what Jesus introduced a couple of thousand years ago, and we see signs of that. We have Red Cross. Doctors Without Borders, and all those kind of things that kind of just helps no matter what. We're also trying to help each other out. I would say in a country like Denmark, Scandinavia, this area, we have a state today that actually try to make the animal side of us less a problem for people, basically. Another discussion. Not for today either. Anyway, so we see some signs here and there, and we can talk about that also in the comments if you like. But anyway, the the thing though about that Jesus and what he did and what he said led to religions, right? And the thing about religions is that they're pretty much based on authorities. And Martinus explains that was all you could pretty much give the world 2,000 years ago. Today we are schooled in a lot of things. We are schooled in training, our intelligence, and our world is way more complex. And go 100 or 200 years back, and that was even more complex or advanced than it was 2,000 years ago. So what he's essentially saying is that there was only so much you could show. So it became an example. It became a religion, and that religion has spread enormously. Um, but today we need a new world redemption. Basically, we need something, the next step in this, and that's the explanation for what is going on. And now we cannot, at least some cannot go and just believe in an authority. We need to know, basically. And that's what Martinus states is his mission, basically, to explain what Jesus said and what the world is, basically. Of course, we know more today than we did 2,000 years ago. So he can bring in more stuff. So that was his job, basically, in a way you can say, to explain why you should not do revenge, why you should be forgiven, try to forgive people, try to understand people, why they're doing that. And that's a whole different video as well. I think I said that a couple of times now. But what Martinus is essentially doing is to lay out a very, he says, is a fairly simple way of showing what the world is. But it's enough for us to understand what it is. And he tried to relate it to what we already know. So he provides us a description of what the world is in a way that we can relate to, and that with our intelligence, and he even says in one place that we really don't need a lot of it to understand what it is. What we really need is to be able to look at it with an open mind. So it's not, you don't have to be a professor or anything, or have a PhD or whatever to understand this. What you really need is an open mind, and that's also a development thing. So that would be a period of time where we need this older brother, living being, whatever, to explain to us what this is. And then, as I already said, at some point we can actually start evolving, helping ourselves in our development. And at some point we will actually get to become these real human beings, and we will get the same intuition as Martinus had, and we can actually see and experience the things ourselves. But we're not really there right now. But it will come, and when we start to be interested in things like this, that's not that long of a way to that experience. Anyway, so that's the principle of the world redemption, that we get the help that we need in as long as we need help. When we get our own cosmic consciousness, we don't need the help anymore. We can actually see all the things ourselves. Anyway, so I'll just show this symbol. This is the 12 basic answers or the solution to the mystery of life. Martinus has made this symbol, and he essentially give 12 basic answers, or 12 facts, if you like. That actually makes up his argument for what the mystery of life is. What is life, basically? And I'll make a series of videos on that. I hope it come out pretty soon. So let me move on to the last part of this, and that's essentially, so how do we deal with all this? What do we do with all that? That's great with all this eternity and all these kind of things, but what can we actually do? So what he says, and I have just picked a few things. So one thing I would like to bring forward is basically, he says, So the question, how do we become real human beings? And one thing I'll just emphasize here is that we should live our level of development. That's how I've translated it. We should basically do not try to be something that we are not. So there is this river example. So if you, well, let me back down a little bit. Martinus has, he gives guidelines, you can say. So one thing is about what we should eat. And he basically said, right now we are in a state where we should be vegetarians. And he's not just saying we should be vegetarians. He also explains why we should be vegetarians. And the reason why we should be vegetarians is, again, back to what I just explained about this eternal plan, is that we are going from being more killing beings to forgiveness and not killing beings in a way. So if we eat meat, we are causing the killing of animals. And being nice or unselfishness is not just to other human beings, it's to all living beings. So essentially, he says we should be vegetarians in order to kill less other living beings. So that's one of the reasons. He also explains that it's better for our physical body because we are so developed right now that it's not really good for us. But that's another video. But then one of the people who were close to him asked, he has seen some people who were eating meat, they were drinking alcohol. Martinus also states that alcohol can actually mess up our mind if we drink a lot of it, or maybe even not so much. Anyway, but this employee or whatever he was, seen some guys that were just living the life basically, as you say, right? Meat, drinking, smoking, everything, right? And he was happy and he was healthy and nothing was wrong. And he said to Martinus, how can that be? Shouldn't he be like in a lot of trouble, basically? And Martinus said he's happy because he was living his level of development, basically. So the main point here is that it's not about being something specific, it's about finding out where you are in life and live like that. And then you can say sometimes you might want to be something more than you are, you want to show off or something. And then you kind of, if we take this flood or river example, you're trying to be ahead of where you are basically. That means um, you're swimming faster than the stream is, and that will give some turbulence and some resistance basically from the flood. That's the idea of the river, I should say. So that's one thing. And the other part is also you can maybe not live up to where you are. You might have some ideals or your development is higher than what you're actually doing. Laziness or being afraid of what people will say, things like that. So you're not really living what you are. And that means you are really going slower than the speed of the river. And that will also means that you will be pushed forward, where if you're trying to go forward, you will be pushed a little bit backwards. So all this is basically an image of where you are in life, right? That life is trying to push you in the right direction. And that's is actually happening through unpleasantness, suffering, troubles, things that tries to put you in the right direction. And we are living in a way right now that we will have that in some ways. But the idea is to try to figure out where is the less of it, basically. But the idea here is basically, it's not that we should live in a specific way. We have to figure out where does it make sense for me to live my life. Anyway, so the next question will be, how do we find our level of development, basically? And one thing Martinus states is that we have good and bad consciousness. That's basically if we do something, sometimes we are totally fine. And sometimes when we do something, afterwards we can feel, okay, I shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. That was bad. It actually collides with my own ideal. I was not supposed to do it like that. Not Obviously, there are times when we do something and it goes wrong because we thought wrong, but this is basically where we do something and we feel bad about it because our ideals has been compromised in a way. And that's a guide for where we are ethically or morally, what we can actually do to other people or living beings. I mean, if you're vegetarians because you think it's ethically or morally the right thing to be, not kill animals, that's a guide to where you should be. If you are vegetarian because it's a health or it's a fashion or something, that's a little bit different. It's still a good thing, I would say, but here we're talking about where do I actually feel good about doing something and where do I feel bad about doing something, and that's a guide to where you are in life. um what you can what you have in order to do something, can you just keep on doing that? So that's a thing. um of others, Martinus also talks about prayers. He says there's a whole science about prayers. um we cannot avoid these unpleasantness and sufferings because they show us the way in life. Um, if we thought 2 plus 2 is 5 and no one told us that it was wrong, we will just move on. If there are no consequences of doing things wrong, if there are no consequences of thinking wrongly about life and nothing corrected us, um, that would be a problem, right? We wouldn't never be able to understand what is right and wrong. So that's part of it. And obviously, if we don't need to be told in a unpleasant way, we won't get it in an unpleasant way. But sometimes we need to have it in that way in order to understand that when I do something to someone else, it hurts them. And if I don't have that, uh, if I don't feel that way, if I cannot feel that they are being hurt by what I'm doing, then the only way might be that I experience the same thing, in order to get that knowledge about it, that compassion, basically, about it. Compassion is an expression that we have experienced something similar ourselves. It can be in this life or it can be in earlier life. If it's in earlier life, Martinus explains that we have a little bit of fantasy, toward for what is going on with the other one, and we can kind of feel the pain in ourselves. And that is also what drives us towards, at some point, not being harmful to others, because we actually feel a little bit pain in ourselves. And that might come out quite selfish, but it's actually not. Anyway, so we cannot avoid this unpleasant and suffering. That's how we learn things right now. So we need that. So what can the prayer actually give us? It can actually give us the force or the power to go through the tough parts of life. So that's one part of it. We can actually, um, get through the hard times. And that's, again, Jesus was one way to look at it, right? And here you can see there are something I haven't translated. Prayer can give us the force. Oh, I just didn't delete it. It's basically the same that stays. So it's also about staying the course, keep the ship in the right direction. Just not get too, I was about to say emotional, but that's not what I mean. But just don't be depressed on what is going on. And I should also say, Martinus explains that prayer is a science in a way that something works and something doesn't work. What I stated in the last one. Not every prayer is working. Always listen to it, someone listening to it in the spiritual world, but it's not always something where we can, get the, well, there's something we have to go through back to the suffering. Let me do that in another video as well. And I will just get this video to an end, and I will get another, quote by Martinus, another way to look at where we should be or can be in life. And let me just read it basically. So, what he's saying, in order to help the seeker of truth to recognize if he has found the right source, which is especially valid for him. So, what is the right thing? That's what he talks about here. What is the right thing for us in life? It will be helpful to mention that such people, things, or manifestations, the things we have in life basically, that are a special inspirational value to an individual, are such realities which can operate as identical with the above mentioned stimulating basis, can very easily be recognized by the fact. So here he tells us, how can we figure out if we are in the right place in life? And he continues that they, by being experienced and sensed, send through the individual in questions, that could be you and me, a flow of warm waves, a flow of life force and energy, of ideas, of longing to represent a higher degree of perfection, a flow of hope and faith in providence and the Father, of divine satisfaction, harmony, and happiness, and an irresistible urge for loving. In other words, an increased ability to love everything and everybody. Where he is in contact with one or more of these flows, there is his right place in life. So that's one way to, if you have one of these warm waves, ideas, longing to represent a high degree of perfection, some of these, you're in the right place. It doesn't really matter what it is in a way. That's my words, more than Martinus probably, because where you are actually makes these things happen or not. But that's his approach, and this is from Livets Bog, and it's pretty much in the beginning. And he's also talking about, I mean, Martinus has his work, and if you're inspired by that in one of these ways, it's great. But if you have another book or another interest or another thing you want to do in life, that's great as well. And there's a understanding from Martinus, and those of us who read this try to be tolerant as well, and understanding of trying to understand what is going on, why you're different, thinking in a different way than I am. We try to be tolerant. That's the whole idea here. Don't want to be naive about it, but we try to understand what is going on. But we also know we are on a journey, and there are some times where you fall off the wagon or the horse or whatever, and you kind of have to go back and try to do it better next time. And the first step is to figure out or find out or understand that you need to do this change. Basically, you can start working with yourself. Basically. Anyway, thanks for watching. Again, subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more about these things. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy if you do that, and I'll be happy to answer them. More videos will come up about, first one I guess will be about the mystery of life. As soon as I have it, I will link it in the description, and there will be other things. And you can also read all the stuff. It's actually free on martinus.dk. It's published by Martinus Institute, which was founded by Martinus himself. And I'll just say thanks for watching and good luck with all of it. And see you next time. Bye.